All right, and we are live. What is up, everybody? Hope you guys have had a great day. Top Goy 1963, thank you so much for the 20. Starting off the show great. Thank you so much. Oh, you guys couldn't hear that. Appreciate the love, appreciate the super chat. Enough with the complaining. Okay, I'm a little bit late, not super late. Take it easy. Good to see all of you in here. I got a lot of you waiting, so I didn't want to keep you waiting too long. But yeah, hopefully you guys all had a great day. Long week already. Bro, it's Tuesday and it feels like it's 2 hours before Monday. I feel like the week hasn't even started. Like, you know, sometimes it's Tuesday and you're delighted that it's Tuesday. You're like, oh man, it's Tuesday. You know, I was thinking it was Monday. And today I'm at work like, dude, it's just been brutal. It's been brutal. But anyways, Top Goy, thank you so much for the 20. Shout out to all of you guys. Appreciate all the love in the chat. Got a lot of news to cover. Lots of things that I want to talk about. Lots of things that have happened since the last time I was live on Sunday, primarily in the Middle East. Me and my brother went over a lot of the developments in Iran. We spoke about Ukraine and Russia and how Russia is going to start testing the waters maybe in Poland, testing how unified NATO really is. And so Russia may actually be aiming to escalate the war more than it has been escalated in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And that's, of course, to continue on with the initial escalation of the special military operation that Putin had coined the term for in February of 2022 when Russia had invaded Ukraine after, of course, formally annexing the Crimean Peninsula and Crimea as a whole in 2014. So that war has gotten all of the signs of a forever war all over it, and it's probably not going to be anytime soon that we see the hostilities cease in that region, being Eastern Europe. And hopefully it doesn't expand, but it seems like Russia is kind of flirting with the potentiality of expanding it and seeing how much NATO will really stand on business. So we'll see where that goes. Hopefully it's a bluff. Hopefully it's Putin just kind of talking tough, but there's really no way to tell until the time passes us. And as of right now, Ukraine is hitting Russia really hard. Russia has probably been most stagnant in annexing or taking over any land in the Donbass since really 2023. And that's because Ukraine has been fighting back hard with their advanced drones supplied by the United States as well as themselves, hitting critical Russian oil refineries specifically, which is slowing down the production of gas, and the gas that actually powers the civilian vehicles and or civilian infrastructure, which has kind of led to some civil unrest within Russia and even provinces as far as Siberia. So that's the situation in Ukraine and Russia. We covered it on Sunday, so if you missed that, just go check that out because I'm not going to go back over it again. But I really want to talk about what's been happening in the Middle East. And what do you know? The MOU is done. And I told you guys the MOU was not going to last. Well, at least I said, me and Sneeko spoke like 4 or 5 weeks ago. Or maybe it was like a month and a half ago. It was in, I think, May, actually. Yeah, I'm crazy. We spoke in May. So 2 months ago, me and Sneeko spoke. And it was in the beginning of that ceasefire phase where Iran and the U.S. were going tit for tat. But really, nothing crazy was happening yet. It wasn't full-blown war like it had been in February 28th, or after February 28th, rather, sorry. And Sneeko said, when do you predict this will start back up? I said, I think this will start back up in July or August. I swear, go check the clip. I think there's a short that's uploaded on my channel now. Shout out to Brent. He uploaded it. I said, July or August, we're going to get back to war. And what do you know? We're back at war. So, you know, I'm giving good predictions out here. You know, I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad. Here, I can show you guys. Let me see. Where is it? Prediction aged like fine wine, okay? Not to toot my own horn. Hey there. There we go. Not to toot my own horn, but if we want to open up the Strait, it's way harder for us to go in and resecure the Strait than it is for Iran to just disrupt it. With a couple speedboats, couple missiles, versus the United States to open it back up, we have to completely eradicate Iran's ability of sending drones into the water. Then we have to tell the oil vessels, hey, it's okay, you're good, follow us. And then Iran is bloodlusted on the coastline, ready to hit these ships. So it's just not going to be like a 2-3 strike, oh, the Strait is open. I think the point of this was to agitate the matter. And if we do reach a ceasefire, it's going to be 60 or 70 days, and then probably by July or August, we're going to get back into war. That's my prediction. Told you niggas. Okay? So there's that. I know we got some chats coming in, so I'm going to read those. But there have been some serious escalations in Iran. We're going to read an article. We're going to react to some videos and go over what I think is to come. And then also there's a whole nother element to this war that is going to prove dramatic and really disastrous for the United States to contain. And I have an article by Axios seeming to suggest that Trump was behind this. And that's Saudi Arabia and the Houthis fighting, and they're exchanging missile fire. Yeah, so in the beginning of the month on July 3rd, I suppose a Houthi-led delegation was flying into Sana'a, or the Sana'a airport, the capital of Yemen, and the Saudi-backed central government of Yemen, the state-sponsored government, had actually sent some warplanes in the area and blocked that plane with the Houthis on it from landing. And so that was a small escalation, but really nothing crazy, but it was a suggestion of aggression. And then fast forward about a couple weeks, and of course, just about 2 or 3 days ago, or actually yesterday, my apologies, it seemed as if though the Sana'a airport was bombed. And that seemed to have been by the Saudi-backed government in Yemen. And as a response, the Houthis responded aggressively and hit an airport in southern Saudi Arabia. I have a video here. And the reason why this is so significant is because now we're not only seeing a fight with the United States and Iran on the front of the Strait of Hormuz, and maybe inland of Iran, Carg Island, and other areas that the United States has been flirting with striking or has struck already at this point since the MOU foiled over about 2 or 3 weeks ago, really, because it really did. But the biggest part now is that the Houthis in Saudi Arabia are back to war. And this has been an issue that has been resolved, or really there's been a decent truce between the two parties since 2022. And so now that's over, and we may resume full war between the Houthis and Saudi Arabia, which again would prove dramatic and disastrous for the Middle East. And I tweeted yesterday, we don't have a regional war anymore. We have a Middle Eastern war. You know, it was just kind of like a Gulf conflict. And of course, Yemen is a part of the Gulf technically. But now this is an issue of the United States backing Saudi Arabia against an Iranian proxy in Yemen, and then also fighting the IRGC directly in the Strait of Hormuz, and then also worrying about whatever is going to escalate in southern Lebanon between the IDF and Hezbollah. So now you've got the issue in Lebanon, you've got the issue in Yemen with Saudi Arabia, and you've got the issue in the Strait of Hormuz with the IRGC and the United States, and 20% of the world's oil being blocked up. And something that I had told you guys to prepare for a few months ago as well, when this war had kickstarted, I said Iran has got a lot of trump cards they have not utilized yet. Remember, they've got a lot of proxy networks within Iraq, and Trump actually met with the new Prime Minister Al-Zadi in Iraq the other day, or I think today, and gave him his flowers, and they're going to build some coalition. That's obviously to gain strategic leverage over Iran as well as many other things. By the way, a U.S.-backed leader, no doubt about it. He was planted there by the United States. We got our tentacles all in that, because in Iraq previously, not to get off topic here, but in Iraq previously, I believe the nomination actually fell towards a Shiite candidate, and he just immediately didn't take office for some strange reason. And then, you know, fast forward a little bit later, and you had the U.S. Western-backed leader in Iraq being Al-Zadi taking power. And of course, now he's meeting with Trump in the White House. So I thought that was interesting. We'll react to a couple clips about that. But, you know, lots of escalations, lots of tensions in the Middle East, and pretty concerning, you know. And we thought that things were going to fizzle out. We thought that things were going to slow down, especially when the MOU was first signed. But just like anything, it was fainting diplomacy. Per J.D. Vance's words, J.D. Vance himself, he had said, oh, we were just doing that to catch a breather. And I mean, that was more than obvious, because now we're back at war. So hopefully these escalations are short-lived, but really at this point, we're seeing all the signs for a forever war right in front of us. And that's a truce, and then a ceasefire, and then talking to Israel, and then Lebanon, and then West Bank, and then we strike the Strait of Hormuz again. We strike the southern coastline of Iran. We hit Qeshm Island. We hit Bandar Abbas, and then we go back to saying now we have a deal, and then Trump says the oil is flowing, and then the IRGC says no, it's not. And so how long is this going to keep up? You know, we were seeing this in April. We were seeing this in March. We were seeing this in April. We were seeing this in May. And we were thinking to ourselves, okay, no way this is going to persist. Like, there's eventually going to be some legitimate deal brokered. And that was the MOU, which was a baseline. If you didn't know what the MOU was, it was a framework in which the United States and Iran could work from so they can actually reach an ultimate peace deal. And so people were hopeful because there was some ambiguity to it, right? There wasn't anything that was necessarily set in stone. Rather, it was a set of stipulations put in place so the United States and Iran could kind of talk to each other while still not maintaining an entire truce. At least that's what the United States aimed for it to be or signify, which is why we kept going tit for tat in the Strait, doing Operation Freedom, trying to guide the vessels out of the Strait, which is us kind of provoking Iran because their control of the Strait is their greatest weapon against us. And so we're trying to take that away from them as strategic leverage, maybe so we can undermine them without having to be at their mercy in blocking the Strait. And then we, start bombing their coastline out of nowhere. And as a result, they start hitting Kuwait. And then hostilities really cease. Everything calms down. And then again, it just happens. And it's just this endless perpetual cycle of, back and forth strikes. And then the United States says, all right, let's make a deal. Let's all calm down. And it's like we're just catching our breath. And Iran has caught on to it. If you haven't been paying attention, a week and a half ago, the Iranian delegation went to Qatar to talk to Qatar about further negotiations for a peace deal and what the MOU was comprised of. And when the U.S. delegation was offered to meet them in Qatar, they denied. And they said, we're going to talk to Qatar. We're not going to talk to you because you guys are operating in bad faith and you keep sabotaging any chance of peace. And on top of that, you cannot control Israel in southern Lebanon. You can't get the IDF to pull out of southern Lebanon, which was a big ask from Iran initially. Initially, Iran had said one of the main conditions for this war to stop is that Israel has to completely cease all hostilities in southern Lebanon. The IDF has to pull out everywhere south of the Litani River because they've created a very strong quote-unquote security or buffer zone, as they like to refer to it as. And as a result, they've taken control of some pretty significant territory like the Belfort Castle, which they had not had control of since 2000. And so we're seeing the greatest tit-for-tat, back and forth situation between Hezbollah and Israel and the IDF really since 2006 in that war. And this would mark like the 7th biggest conflict between any Arab kind of coalition, Arab state, military faction in Israel since 1948. You had 48, 57, 67, or 48, 56, 67. You had 73. You had 06, and now you've got everything on October 7th following that war, and then now this one is kind of a new one. So, the Middle East will never be a place of peace. That's just the unfortunate truth. I know that's like kind of demoralizing and grim to say, but it's something we all need to recognize. So we'll read these articles in a moment and get into all of this stuff, but yeah, I didn't mean to actually go into all of that. I wanted to read the articles and then give you guys my thoughts. But yeah, back at war. No surprise there, unfortunately. There really is no surprise. I've been saying for the longest amount of time that it's kind of impossible to achieve peace when the United States wants to achieve some sort of maritime control of the Strait of Hormuz. And this is something that Iran was not actually imposing themselves on. Previously, Iran and Oman, which is the country on the opposing side of the strait, had control, right? They shared that control, rather. And when the war broke out, then it was all bets off. Really, Iran took control of the entire strait and made it very painful for us to continuously strike them. And then the second element of pain they added for the United States to make it really, really grim is that they started hitting our Gulf allies, Kuwait, Bahrain, all the GCC. And so they're not going to let go of that. It's increasingly obvious they're not going to let go of that. And we have a forever war on our hands. And that's what my brother and I had said. And I don't mean to keep saying I said, but, maybe some of you are watching for the first time. Maybe some of you weren't tuned in previously, so that's fine. But I got to remind you, bro, we're kind of getting shit right over here, okay? And everybody was saying before, you hate Trump, you're an IRGC spokesperson. Look at what Trump has done now. He's ruined the fucking country. Trump is ruining the country. And he's ruining our foreign affairs. So, after this is all said and done with, whoever steps in 2028, which I think is probably going to be a Democrat because the vehicle of the right wing is completely done. It's completely halted. There's no gas left in the tank. When the Democrats win, because they're already winning in New York, they're already winning in Colorado, they're already winning in several other districts in the United States. When the Democrats win, when the socialists probably win in 2028, what are they going to have left to manage and salvage of our Middle Eastern relations with all of the GCC? Trump is making it very hard for the next president to come in and clean up. This is going to be a situation that's worse than what Obama had to deal with when he had to clean up after Bush's mess, which Obama just exacerbated and made worse anyways in 08. I think the situation in 2028 is going to be even worse. So, 20 years later, no difference. Go figure. But, yeah, Trump is meeting with the Iraqi prime minister now. And I'm looking at it here. He's meeting with Al-Zadi. And, of course, just the most easiest, simplest timing, right? The most convenient timing to meet with him. And that's, of course, to resist any Iranian influence in Iraq, in which they had a ton previously. And the former leader, I think his name is Nouri al-Maliki, was somebody who won the parliamentary election and then just didn't take office for some odd reason. And now we have this new U.S. favor-backed leader in Iraq to hopefully give us some sort of buffer against Iranian proxy network. So, it's like, bro. But yeah, how was your day? How How was your day? Let me read some chats. Hopefully you guys had a good day. Hopefully you guys had a good day. So we'll get into the news. I'm going to just read some chats really quick. John says, I saw your brother's making a book about them boys. Could you forward him that? Yeah, I'm working on it, John. I got you. I'm talking to him. Juan, thank you for the super chat. Juan says, I just found out my wife is 30% Jewish. Nice. Okay. What, through 23andMe? That's a lot. Anyways, guys, you're leaving me with no room. I can't make jokes about this stuff. I'm on YouTube. Anyways, so yeah, but hopefully you all had a good day. My day was brutal. Gang, and I did this video the other day saying, like, stop worrying about the World Cup. You're in the Matrix if you're worried about the World Cup. You know, you probably have a normal job. I have a normal job. No one seems to get that. I have a normal job. And today was brutal. You know, I was talking to one of my good friends who I work with, and I was saying, I wake up in the morning and I'm full of energy. You know, we're going to get into the news, but I want to see if anybody can relate here, because I know all of you work normal jobs, or at least most of you probably do. If you don't, good for you. I wake up in the morning full of energy, feeling good, replenished. Even if I got like 5 or 6 hours of sleep, once I'm up and running, once the blood is flowing, I'm all right. And, you know, you go into work, and I swear to God, everything is sucked out of me. Everything is taken from me. And at 5 p.m. when I clock out, there's nothing left except flesh and bones. There's no soul. My creativity is gone. My energy is gone. My mood is down. I'm just pissed. And this is 5 times a week. You know, you ever think about that? You go into work, and it's like every single time you go into work, you just meet Cell. And he just sucks you of all your energy. A Dragon Ball reference. And you just come out. You know, you think you come out the same. You think you come out, you can go to the gym and conquer the day, and you just come out like you've got the PTSD 30-mile stare, whatever they call it, the 100-yard stare. You know, so I get out of work today, and I'm like, I got to hit the gym. I got to do my stuff. And, bro, I just lay down in my bed and die. I just fell asleep. I couldn't. Look, I don't mean to sound like a pussy. You know, I'm typically the guy who says, don't be a bitch. Get to your shit. You know, I pick up all those good habits from Myron, at least most of them. But sometimes you just get out of a long shift and you've got nothing left. You got sucked dry. Pause. You got sucked dry. You just got used and tossed like a rag. You know, your job has had their way with you. Your company has had their way with you. You've expended so much energy. And it's a spiritual thing, you know, like physically you're the same, right? You can get out of work and hit a PR technically, right? You're not necessarily drained physically if you work like a white collar job like me, like if you're in an office or whatever. Blue collar, that's different. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be able to speak to that. But, you know, it's just soul sucking. It's just soul sucking. So my entire essence, my being was taken away from me today, more so than other days. And today was a normal day, but you know, it's just the monotony starts to get to you. It's like 1:51 p.m. and you're just sitting there and you're like, I've got 4 hours left. So, yeah. Okay, pause. You guys need to grow up in the chat. But you know what I'm saying? It's just brutal. It's absolutely brutal. It's brutal. So I got out of work today and I said, I can go to the gym. And I go to the gym nearly every day. Like, I can afford to take a day off. I go honestly too often. I go like 6 times a week. I should really be going 4 to 5 if we're being real. But, you know, I get out of work and I'm like, I can go to the gym, but I'm just not going to want to stream if I go to the gym. Like, I'm going to be too tired. And I'd rather sit here with you guys and go over everything that's been happening. And this is what I really enjoy to do. Like, this is what I don't have to dread doing. This is where, like, I become alive. I feel like I'm getting something back in return for this. You know, and at work, it's just like give, receive nothing. Here's your paycheck, bitch. Get the fuck out. That's work. You know what I mean? So it's just, you know, not to complain, oh, boo-hoo, I have a job. Like, look, if you have a job, you're lucky, especially right now. The job market's actually not that bad, but to get a job right now it's actually one of the worst times to try and search for a job in a long time. I think in like the last decade. So the job market is not terrible from the sense of the people who have jobs. Unemployment is not that bad. It's been worse. But if you're out of a job, you're screwed. So if you have a job, really be thankful. Really be thankful. And I'm always thankful of that. Like, look, I got a job. I sound like such a wagey. I have a job. But, you know, thank God. All praises to God. Alhamdulillah. I have a job, and I'm lucky for that, you know, and I can make a living. But, bro, that shit is... I don't know how much longer. I don't know how much I got left in the tank, man. I don't know how much I got left in the tank, bro. Today was like a black pill. I'm telling you. So I don't know if you guys can relate to that, but today I just had an epiphany. I'm like, can I do this any longer? It's just not sustainable. It's not sustainable. You know, you go in and you're sucked dry and you leave. And then it's like, go. And that's why I got to start going to the gym in the morning. So at my fullest, highest self, I'm training. I'm working on my body. Then I go to work. I don't, doesn't matter if I have energy or not for work. I could care less. I get the job done. I go through the motions, go to work, get out of work, maybe take a nap, run the stream. But I stream at night, and you guys, I think, like to watch at night. So I can't really like get to bed early and hit the gym 8 in the AM. Maybe I'm making excuses, but yeah, it's just brutal. It's brutal. So anyways, that's me. That's me. Yeah, it's just, and it's like nice. I tweeted this not too long ago. I said, what did I tweet? Actually, I don't even remember what I tweeted. Let me pull this up. I think I tweeted this at work, like just depressed. If you guys see a tweet that's very like specific, it's probably because it's something I'm going through in that moment. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, follow me on X, rather, I should say. That's Ryad's report. Let me see if I can find that post. I cook on X though. Like I'll go ahead and pull up my X. I actually do cook on X. Let's see. So, you know, I'm always giving updates and stuff. You know. Let's see if I could find it here. Talking about heartbreak, talking about the war, wishing your girl on Instagram happy birthday is crazy work. Tweeting funny shit like that. Let's see, what else? Okay. Yeah, so I tweeted this at 5:40 p.m. So I just got out of a brutal shift. Just got my soul sucked out of me. Just got you know what. And I said, there is no summer when you work full time. You shall suffer inside while it's warm and sunny outside. And it's true. It's real. You know, you're at work and it's summer here in Connecticut and you're inside just typing like a good slave. And you look outside and it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous out. And you know what's the real, like, black pill? You know what's brutal? Is when you have a day off. You guys, I know you guys can relate to this. I'm gonna get to the article. You have a day off, and so you start running errands early in the day, like 1 or 2 o'clock, and there's people like out, and it's like, do you do this every day? Like, do you not have a job? I see these like 37-year-old soccer moms, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, she doesn't have a job. Or I'm just seeing like normal people. I go to the gym early because I have the day off from work for whatever reason, and I see people at the gym during work hours, and I'm just like, what the fuck do these unemployed niggas do? Have they escaped the matrix? And I'm just jealous because the world and society, civilization is so much better from 9 to 5. You know, that obviously you get on the highway at 5 or any time from like 4 to 6, you're getting smoked. You go to the grocery store at any time after 5, you're getting smoked. The gym, forget about it. Target, forget about it. You know, you want to run some errands, but anytime between 9 and 5, it's bliss. It's bliss. The people around you are probably higher earners, which is why they don't need to be selling all of their time for some measly check at the end of every month or week. So you're sharing space with higher vibrational people. And everybody just doesn't seem stressed. There's no chaos in the atmosphere. Everybody's moving slow, you know. And then there's you niggas getting out of work, flooding the earth at 5 o'clock, you nasty fucking goyim. Me included. So, because I go to the gym at 5 and 6 and it's just trash. It's horrible. Rush hour, can't get a machine, going up to niggas, hey bro, do you mind if I get next? You don't have to do that at 2 or 3 p.m. So, but it's a necessary evil. Look, we're the greatest country in the world because we work that hard. I'm in the elevator. Last thing, I swear to God, I'm in the elevator. I'm making sure the chat's not getting pissed that I'm rambling. I'm in the elevator today. And, bro, like a 60-year-old, minimum, I'm being generous here, 60-year-old lady, like about to fucking die. I'm like looking at her like, this bitch is about to hit the fucking floor. Old as shit. Old as hell. And I'm like, why are you working? Why are you? I hope you're getting a bag. I don't know what department she was in. I don't know what. I'm just looking at her like, what are you doing here? And I think to myself, like, you know, and that's when I had that oh shit moment, like, I gotta get out of here. I can't be doing this until 5 or 6 o'clock. I can't be doing this until 5 or 6 o'clock for the next 40, 50 years of my life. But that is the American story. And for a lot of Americans, it seems like they just have accepted that. It's normalized. More power to them. Better for our economy. But I can't be a part of that mess. I can't, you know? And I'm looking at her and I'm like, yo, there's a lady who looks just like, I'm looking at the 70-year-old lady in the elevator. I'm like, there's a lady who looks just like you somewhere in Europe living an alternate life. Looks just like you, same age, and she's on the beach every day. And she's having margaritas, and she's seeing her grandchildren, and she's not slaving behind a desk in 65-degree AC while it is 95 degrees outside and sunny. Grass is as green as it will be all year. So it is just scary, you know, to think about like that 9-to-5 vicious cycle all the way up until the age of retirement. So when I see I see a 30, 40-year-old working, whatever, that's normal. Or anybody my age, of course, that's normal. When I see like old people working, that scares me. That scares me. And I pity them. Not in like a rude way, but in like a really, like, I feel bad. I feel horrible for them. Like, do you have to work? Maybe you just want to escape your house. And I get it. There's a lot. Everybody's got that one guy at his job who like loves his job because his job is better than his house because he has a nagging, annoying ass wife and kids who fucking hate him or something. So I guess for them, that's a W, I suppose. But for most people, it's like, would you actually rather be here? You know, it's an interesting question. So, you know, that's my work monologue. But dude, it's tough, man. It's tough. You walk out those doors at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever time you get out, man, and there's nothing but skin and bones. There's nothing but physical being. Your physical manifestation exists, but your spiritual one, you left that back in the office. They took it from you. They fucked you. So that's me like every day. And when I come on stream, I have to like recharge, you know? So that's why I like to take a nap, or I'll go to the gym. I try to go for a walk or something. Because I can't just like there's psychos at work who bring their, and maybe some of you are them, bring their gym clothes to work and then from work go straight to the gym, change, and work out. Highly efficient. Highly efficient. Not mad at it. But like, where's your life? I just feel like there needs to be a transitional phase. Like I need to go home and become Ryad again. I get out of work, I cannot go straight to the gym. I've tried it before, so I'm speaking from experience. I have to go home and become Ryad again. Center myself, come back to baseline, remember who I am, because I just sold myself for 8 hours for a couple shekels. Now I need to like reground, center myself, spiritually balance, and then go to the gym. You know, you niggas who just gym, work, locker room, shower, gym, work, locker room, shower, bed 9 p.m. You niggas are animals, machines. God bless you, could never be me. So, anyways, I had some chats here. I'm yapping. But we're going to read this article right now. Bad stuff in Iran, okay? Bad stuff in Iran. We're going to read this, and we're going to get to move along. We're going to go over Iran. We're going to go over Khanna in the West Bank, him getting detained. What do you know? An American congressman is not safe in the West Bank. What do you think about a Palestinian, huh? So, we'll go over that, and yeah, it'll be a good show. Okay, I got a couple more chats. Top Goy member for 2 months. Shout out to you, man. Upstate New York got a heat wave today, up to 96. I work outside. I felt like a kid today. Yeah, it was hot today too. It was 95 in Connecticut. So yeah, I feel you. But I love the hot weather. As long as I got shade, I can be outside in the heat. I don't got shade. Yeah, I'm staying inside. Mookie says, I hear you. I work in manufacturing as a supervisor, 7 to 5. Soon as I walk in, some bullshit happening. fucking people. Shout out to the 203 Bridgeport. I'm learning a lot from you and your brother. I'm learning trading. Shout out to you, bro. Shout out to you. And look, man, keep it up, man. Bro, we're living in a new time where, you know, the 7 to 5, the 8 to 4, the 9 to 5, whatever it is, it's not the end all be all anymore. There's alternative money routes. There's different ways to make money. And the young people are figuring it out. You know, one of our big supporters, one of the guys in the community, his name is Thodic. I think well, I don't want to dox what he does, but he doesn't have a job. He's making good money. He's younger than me. There's a lot of guys like that. So, you know, you hate your job, figure something else out. Figure something else out. Obviously, that's, you know, Ryad, take your own advice. Okay, what do you think I'm doing right now? But, you know, if you don't like your job, do something else. You know, try to figure something else out. And that's where you got to sacrifice that fun time, because the free time that you have is minimal. You really got to capitalize on it. So, you know, we're living in 2020, 30 though. We're in the future, baby. Just log on to ChatGPT and say, how do I get rich? It'll probably give you good advice. How can I make money on the side? How can I make an extra $500 a month utilizing drop shipping, e-commerce, copyright? I don't know. There's money making methods. I don't know. There's ways to do it. Editing. How can I learn video editing? Join a video editing course. Then start selling your services to people online, content creators. DM a bunch on X. Say, yo, this is a clip I made of you. Can I make you more? Can I edit for your YouTube channel? So, you know, there's ways to do it. And that's just one very narrow pathway. There's so many other things you can do. Anyways, Pokefry, I feel the grind, bro. I'm a truck driver. I drive coast to coast. I'm on the road for 2 months. The marathon continues. God bless you, man. And you are a vital part to our country. So we appreciate it. We salute you for your hard work. Thank you, man. Yeah, trucking is brutal. Trucking is not for anybody. Not for everybody. I'll tell you that. But shout out to you, Pokefry. Glad you're here with me. Hopefully you're listening to this as you're on the road, trucking along, bouncing and shit in the truck. These truck driving niggas, big ass steering wheel, just fucking rolling through the gears. So hopefully you're enjoying. You know, hopefully I can give you a little bit of an escape. Entertain you, make the time pass. Showman Nation says, what do you do for work? I am a good slave. William says, what do you do apart from the 9 to 5 and streaming? So I got some things in the mix. I'm not going to say it on stream, but I got some other things that I'm working on. Inshallah, it all pieces together, God willing. You gotta up the income streams, okay? All my young niggas in here, okay? Bust out the notepad, get your pen out, take notes. You gotta have multiple streams of income, okay? One is not enough because the one could disappear at any time. Your job could wake up one day and say, we don't need you anymore. We pay you too much money. You don't even make the company that much money. Goodbye, laid off. No reparations, no 6-month fee or whatever it's called. Just bye, no more money. You never know. And that's to myself as well. I take my own advice. So you got to get multiple streams. I know it's the, you know, cliche classic financial advice, multiple streams of income, multiple streams, but it's true. It's true. You need a few different streams of income. Stability, right? Obviously it's more money, but more importantly, stability. If one outlet falls, if one light in the tunnel, if one tunnel caves in, you got others. So, you know, but I do a couple different things that I'm trying to really get shaken. One day I'll share them, but right now I won't. One Chest says, no excuse to be fat or broke in 2026. Very true. One Chest, get with our guy, One Chest. He's the official trainer of our community, my brother and I. And he'll pretty much take you from like fat to shredded. So get with him. If you're fat in 2027, I know it's 2026. I'm just being silly. Well then, you know, get with One Chest. Everybody's in shape now. Everybody's on the Retatrutides. Everybody's on the peptides. Not promoting them. I'm just saying everybody's kind of getting shredded these days. Maybe you should join them. I'm getting pretty lean. Should I pull the shirt up? Nah, just professionalism. So, but yeah, get with him. He's going to pop his link in the chat. You can fill out the survey and I endorse him. Legitimate trainer, legitimate body recomp transformations. I've seen it all. If you're struggling with weight loss, if you're struggling with putting on muscle, being in the gym, being consistent, get with him. He'll take care of you. Jairus says, I feel you, Ryad. I work blue collar, then get 1 to 2 hour break. I work at home, then go to my part-time, then go to bed, then start again the next day. And I'll say this, hey, shout out to you. Thank you for the chat, man. But like, look, I'm making all these jokes. Let me say this. This is important. There is a nobility in working a job. You know, there is a nobility in working a job. It's admirable to work a job. Like, I know I'm being, maybe I'm sounding corny. Look, it's what keeps the country going. What did Tate say? Somebody's got to flip the burgers, dumbass. Look, I'm flipping the burgers with you. That's not a diss at you. But, you know, it's what keeps the country going. And it's also just a necessary part of life. You got to work hard. You got to work hard. You got to give up your time for income. So, you know, there is this growing idea of entrepreneurship and this entrepreneur porn that has taken over TikTok and Instagram, where everybody's like, quit your 9 to 5, do this and that. And it's like, no. You should have a job. You should have a stable job. Do everything not to jeopardize that job. That's guaranteed income. And don't be a dumbass with that money. And eventually take that income and put it into other places that can earn you more income, or take that time that you may have on the side and try to figure out other outlets to make money and, you know, maybe do that. But there's a nobility in working a job, and, you know, that's what our country's built off of, is hard workers. So, Jer, God bless you, or I think it's Jer's Jaw 6988. God bless you. Blue collar, then get a 1 to 2 hour break at home, then go to my part time. Shout out to you, man. Shout out to you. I don't know if you got a family you're supporting or what, but there is nobility in that. So 07 to you. W's in the chat for him. You know, I hate it too. I don't work the hardest job. I work 40 hours a week. I work a tech job. I'm in the corporate world. You know, my soul is sucked from me every single time I walk through those doors. I walk out skin and bones. I'm not Ryad anymore. But, you know, it's the way these things work. It's the way these things work. And, you know, I admire people who work hard on their job and take it serious and upgrade in the company and things like that. So Smokey says, you buying a house anytime soon? If so, now's a good time to. Also, do you drive a beat up Honda as well? No, I don't drive a beat up Honda. And I don't know if I'm buying a house. So here's the thing about me buying a house, guys. I'll be honest. Quick Islam pill. You have to get into interest, and I don't really want to deal with interest. Interest is haram. So I've always thought about that. I battled that. But is there any other way to buy a house? No. So eventually I'll probably get my first property somehow, or I'll acquire it. My brother will help me with that. But yeah. I'm paying rent. Money's just going in the drain, so I should get into a house, honestly. Army Kill says, I'm in the Army and already working on an alternative type of work in the meantime, so I have a skill set. Job is very manual labor heavy. Yeah, man. Build skills. Become of use. Become a useful, productive member to society outside of your job. Niggas be talking about, oh, I have this skill. It's like, but you're getting paid for that skill already. That's why you work that job. Get another one. Get another one. You know, more income. So shout out to you, Army Kill. And thank you for the service, brother. Just Skate says, shout out to you and your brother for keeping us out of the Matrix. Only real ones besides Sneeko keeping the truth out. Thank you, Just Skate. Yeah, shout out to my brother and Sneeko. Okay, so how old are you? I'm 24. All right, so let's see. I know you guys have questions. Just chat it in. I really can't. What has it been? 30 minutes now of me just yapping before the news. I know you guys like that sometimes. You know, we like to take a little bit of a break, but we got to get to the business here. So let's go into what's going on. We'll read this article by the New York Times, and then we'll I'll give my thoughts and everything. But I kind of already explained a good amount to you guys. So anyways, this here reads, U.S. war against Iran enters a new phase. The Trump administration has lurched back into war against Iran that had never really ended. When the war started more than 4 months ago, U.S. forces targeted Iranian military bases, missile launchers, ships, and naval facilities. Israel, fighting alongside the United States, hit leadership targets, hoping to bring down Iran's hardline government. By the way, they failed miserably. Their record of success has been mixed. At best, Israel killed the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, but the leaders who succeeded him were even more hardline. And that's what I told you guys. That's his son, Mujtaba Khamenei, in which the U.S. and Israel killed his entire family. So you can imagine how charged up he is. But the leaders who succeeded him were even more hardline. U.S. forces struck thousands of targets, but did not destroy Iran's ability to control the Strait of Hormuz, the waterway through which about 20% of the world's oil typically flows. For roughly 90 days, beginning in April, on and off again, ceasefire prevailed, and then it was over. The United States now appears to be entering round 2 of its military campaign. This round has a new focus, but not necessarily a clearer strategy. Iran's ability to control the Strait, despite the pummeling its navy took, is by far the most important lesson of the first phase of the war. So it's no surprise that the Trump administration is focused on trying to loosen Iran's grip on it. Last Tuesday, in retaliation for attacks on tankers, President Trump ordered airstrikes on dozens of targets in Iran, including coastal radars, anti-ship missile launchers, and a fleet of small Iranian attack boats. After a short lull, the United States hit 140 military targets in the first 3 consecutive days of heavy bombing this week. U.S. forces carried out new rounds of attacks on Iran throughout Tuesday and resumed a naval blockade of Iranian ports, a strategy that showed some success in the earlier phase. Hint, and spoiler alert, it's not going to work. The strikes are intended to open the waterway to shipping. The purpose of the naval blockade is to put economic pressure on Iran by choking off its trade and to flex American military might. Mr. Trump was quick to declare success. He says the Strait of Hormuz is open to all ship traffic except for Iran, and that is because of their lying, violent, malicious leadership, which is taking them down the path of total destruction. Mr. Trump wrote on Truth Social on Tuesday morning, which is today. But exactly what the U.S. military will do to enforce the blockade and how far it will go to exert control of the Strait is not clear. A key question is whether Mr. Trump will consider an operation to take the Strait's Carg Island, a key export hub for Iranian oil. Mr. Trump publicly mused about ordering the Marines to take control of the island during the first phase of the war, but ultimately abandoned those plans for fear of high U.S. casualties, in which there certainly would be. Such an operation would be a far bigger escalation than Mr. Trump has undertaken so far, but it would be difficult and lives could be lost in either taking or holding the island. The United States continues to have a fearsome arsenal in the region, including 2 aircraft carriers and a dozen of carrier and land-based attack and surveillance planes. There are currently more than 20 U.S. Navy warships and hundreds of military aircraft operating across the Middle East. CENTCOM said in a statement announcing the resumption of the blockade, American forces remain vigilant, lethal, and ready. In the strikes last week, U.S. forces hit more than 170 Iranian military targets in 3 consecutive days of heavy bombing this week. The United States has hit 140 targets, yada, yada, yada. Analysts said the Trump administration was sending a pointed message to the government in Tehran that the United States was willing to broaden its mission again and hit sites that have both military and civilian uses. But senior U.S. officials said the real focus of the current phase is undoubtedly the Strait. The U.S. military has hit some targets far from the Strait, but they are also connected to the central mission. For example, U.S. forces last week appeared to hit a railway bridge in northeastern Iran, more than 700 miles from the Strait. Online video report verified by the New York Times showed several people inspecting a crater at the site. Captain Tim Hawkins, a spokesman for Central Command, said in a phone interview that those targets included Iranian military logistics infrastructure targets that enabled Iran to direct weapons, munitions, and other military supplies to the most contested area of the conflict. So far, Trump had not ordered resumption of such an all-out conflict, in part because that could prompt Iran to target not only U.S. military bases in Gulf countries like Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia, but also energy infrastructure in those nations. Attacks on those facilities could send oil and natural gas prices skyrocketing even higher. And by the way, we did the show on 73 oil Sunday, and now it's 86 if I'm not mistaken. So there's that. Senior officials said the goal of the new military campaign is to force Iran to allow tankers and other military cargo ships or other commercial cargo ships to pass freely through the Strait, and ultimately to return to the bargaining table to resume nascent talks on more difficult long-term issues like the fate of Iran's highly enriched uranium. And we'll finish off with this paragraph here. Administration officials acknowledge that the military strategy is not without risks. Iran has shown it has asymmetric advantage. Iranian forces do not have to hit every ship passing through the Strait or sink any of them. They only have to cause enough damage and issue enough threats to scare shipping companies and insurers. This week, Iranian missiles struck 2 crude oil carriers that were transiting the southern part of the Strait. The attack killed an Indian crew member, another tanker carrying liquefied natural gas. Also, another was hit and caught fire near the Omani coast. So, really a shit show in the Strait of Hormuz, and where the United States has no control. And this is what we've been telling you guys from the get-go. It's impossible to take control of the Strait back. It's just impossible. The only feasible way, theoretically, that we could take the Strait back entirely and ensure these oil vessels can pass through without interruption from drone threats or speedboats or whatever else Iran is using its military to threaten for, is by destroying the IRGC. And that's something we tried to do in the first 40 or 50 days of the war until that ceasefire on April 6th. But it's to no use, and it really doesn't go anywhere, because when we enact that ceasefire, well, then Lebanon is targeted. Then Israel starts hitting Lebanon. Then Saudi Arabia starts fighting the Houthis. And so long as Saudi Arabia and the Houthis are fighting, and I'm not saying they're at a full-blown war right now, although the hostilities we saw yesterday are the greatest escalations that we've seen between the Saudi Arabian and the Houthi war since 2022. I'm not saying it's at a full-scale war, but it's a very bad sign, because now, more than ever, the Houthis have all the more reasons to start clogging up the Red Sea, which is responsible for 12% of the world's oil supply. Already 20% is congested in the Strait of Hormuz. So we're going to go from 20% of the world's oil being choked out to 32%. And that's just absolutely unacceptable from a U.S. strategic standpoint, because already the bleeding that we have felt from the Strait of Hormuz being closed has us acting in desperation, attacking Iran in the midst of a ceasefire. The thing is, we want a ceasefire. The thing is, we want to end the war, especially the IC, the Pentagon, everybody else. Even Trump probably on the down low wants this war to end, but he really has no choice but to continuously fight if Iran is going to make money on these ships and continue to block the Strait. Previously, Iran did open up the Strait. On several different occasions, they opened up the Strait, so long as the United States met all the requirements for whatever stipulation was signed at that time, or whatever peace deal was signed at that time. So the MOU was one, and then that previous April 6th ceasefire was also another, and where they opened up the Strait following those deals. But again, and I'm not trying to do the whole Israel thing, but I'm going to have to do the whole Israel thing, because we can't manage to keep a peace deal going for 2 or 3 weeks. I think this MOU just lasted over 3 weeks until Israel does something and provokes Iran to no longer keep the Strait open. And so if Israel, at the worst, which they are, is being aggressive in southern Lebanon, then Iran, at the minimum, which they were, will clog up the Strait. They're not going to bomb the GCC. They're not going to fight the United States. They're not going to hit our naval carriers or anything like that, but they're going to clog up the Strait, and they know that's painful for us. So, again, like I said, it's this vicious cycle. There really shouldn't be any surprise to anybody who has been paying attention to the conflict since the start, because we have always told you it's going to be the same thing over and over again. But now we can see videos coming out of the Middle East of several different pieces of oil infrastructure, oil refineries, warehouses being hit in the Middle East, like countries in Kuwait. So this here reads, footage shows direct impact of Iranian Shahed drone hitting a warehouse in Kuwait moments ago during the latest wave of attacks. No sirens were even activated. So there's that. And then we keep going here. Same video. And this isn't pertaining to Saudi Arabia. Trump personally greenlit Saudi Arabia strikes on the Houthis, and a 4-year truce may be collapsing. This is from Barack Ravid. So we're going to read that in a moment. I have that Axios article queued over here. And then let's see. This was the Houthis striking an airport in southern Saudi Arabia yesterday. So those are some photos. And then let me just refresh the page so this will actually play. Such a Khadija accent. So you got that smoke everywhere, and that's a serious escalation. That's the first time that a Houthi missile has actually crossed over into Saudi Arabian airspace and hit critical infrastructure like that in some time. And then here are some missiles flying back and forth over Jordan, I believe. It says new footage shows 5 direct ballistic missiles hits on the U.S. Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan last night. And so, largely a lot of this damage is being done with drones. It's not even that many missiles that Iran has been utilizing since the ceasefires have taken place for the MOU as a whole. And they've got so many of these drones, they're cheap to make. They make them in-house. So, definitely a grim reality we're going to have to accept. And let me close that out. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Axios article. So this here says Trump gave Saudi Crown Prince his backing for risky strikes on Houthis. So this is the situation in Saudi Arabia in the Sana'a airport. President Trump gave Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman his support for a highly unusual military action against the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen, according to 2 U.S. officials. The Saudi strike on the Sana'a airport Monday and Houthi retaliatory missile attacks that followed were the most serious cross-border escalation since 2022. They could signal the collapse of a 4-year unofficial truce between the parties. A renewed military conflict between Saudi Arabia and the Houthis could exacerbate regional tensions and broaden the war between the United States and Iran. The fact that MBS notified Trump in advance and asked for his backing signals that the Saudis are concerned about a larger conflict with the Houthis that will require military and diplomatic support from the United States. Last week, Saudi Arabia told the United States it was concerned about the situation and asked for support for possible strikes against the Houthis. On Thursday, the Saudi ambassador to Washington met with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. A day later, Rubio spoke to Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan. Shortly after, on Friday, President Trump spoke by phone with Saudi Crown Prince per a U.S. official. MBS, the Crown Prince, asked Trump for his backing for a military action against the Houthis and received it, the official said. When asked for comment, the White House referred to Trump's comment in an interview with Fox News on Monday morning in which he harshly criticized Iran. The Saudi embassy in Washington did not respond to a request for comment. The clash between Saudi Arabia and the Houthis started 10 days ago when a plane belonging to Iran's Mahan Air landed in the Houthi-controlled city of Sana'a. It picked up a delegation of the group's leaders who traveled to the funeral of former Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. So as I told you guys, I believe that was July 3rd. Flights from Iran to Sana'a haven't taken place for more than a decade. Saudi Arabia blocked those flights, fearing they would be used to transfer weapons or Iranian military advisors to the Houthis. So, anyways, the rest of this is really irrelevant. But, yeah, and this is just the nature of a war with Persia. This is the nature of a war with Iran. If we continuously fight Iran, it's inevitable that their proxies are going to mobilize. And so now they're utilizing airports and airstrips that they have not used before. And maybe they are sending weapons, or maybe they are sending critical military leadership to Sana'a or to Yemen to kind of have them ready and, with their weapons at a moment's notice, firing at Saudi Arabia if Iran gets pushed into deep enough of a corner. And so this is what I'm fearful of. The United States has ramped up its aggression against Iran to the point that we haven't seen since the beginning of the war. And if Iran feels enough pressure and they're backed into enough of a corner, I'll go ahead and give you another prediction. All of their proxies across the region are going to start mobilizing. And we saw a little bit of this, remember, at the end of April going into May, I believe, where the Houthis had joined the war and hit Prince Sultan Air Base, which is about southeast of Riyadh 2 hours, which is a critical air base for U.S. infrastructure and where our AWACS systems were eradicated, already something we're running low on. And so the Houthis had the capability of hitting that, and Saudi Arabia does not have intercepting missiles to the degree that can actually keep up with Iranian ballistic missiles and then missiles from the Houthis and whoever else decides to get into the war. And that's because our defense munitions in the Middle East are depleted and running low from defending Israel so viciously for the first 40 days of the war. And so now we can't even defend our Middle Eastern allies, yet we're fighting Iran aggressively and pushing them into a corner where our Middle Eastern allies are going to be subject to retaliatory strikes from the Iranian proxy groups. So we're kind of biting ourselves in our own ass. And it's a matter of time until, if we continue to escalate, we're going to see this full-scale war between Saudi Arabia and the Houthis, Hezbollah and Israel, which has already been ongoing, but it's probably going to get worse. And that's because all bets are off now. There's no MOU to maintain. There's no peace deal to maintain. There's no desperate seeking of peace from this Trump administration, at least front face. That's not what it seems like. And so what's to say that the IDF is just not going to ramp up its operations in southern Lebanon like it never has before? That's likely what we're going to see as the next development in these few weeks if the tensions keep up as to where they are. So that's the most concerning thing I can say, at least from my perspective. And look, we're scrambling in the Middle East to try and take control and get into a situation where we have the upper hand against Iran for the better part of the next 3 or 4 years. And I'd hate to say this, but the way this war has been going, it seems like it's going to last that long. I hope it doesn't. I know that's a bold prediction, but why are we doing things like this? President Trump welcomes the Prime Minister of Iraq, Ali Al-Zadi, to the White House, and they had their own conversation. And of course, this is to gain strategic leverage against Iran, a country that is very close to Iraq, and a country that is home to a lot of Iranian influence and or proxy network groups. So
I just want to say,
let's see what they had to say.
It's a great honor to have the Prime Minister of Iraq with us. He's been a great fighter, and he's been a great fan of America. We'll be discussing that a little bit with you, but they have tremendous oil reserves. They have tremendous potential wealth, and they have tremendous wealth, not only potential. But he's done in a short period of time, he's changed that country so much, especially toward their thinking about the United States. And we have a partnership.
AKA he's kept them away from Iranian influence as much as he could.
Ships, Chris was just saying we have tremendous oil partnerships all of a sudden being formed over the last short period of time, and I guess you're going to be announcing them this week or next week, but massive, among the largest. So they have done a fantastic job over the last very short period of time, but they have a great leader, the new prime minister. He's a great leader. I think he's going to be there for a long period of time, and it's great to have you at the White House. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And he's a young man. He's young and he's handsome. Which
Yo, what is with Trump calling everybody handsome, bro? He said that about the leader of Syria, Ahmed al-Shara. He said that about this guy. He said that about Zohran Mamdani. This nigga got a brown fetish, bro. Always calling brown niggas handsome.
I don't like. I'm not happy about it.
Always calling brown niggas cute. But anyways, so yeah, look. Probably want Iraq to become a buffer state. We want to build that long-term partnership, but you know, the biggest thing is just that Iranian influence. We got to resist it, and that's Trump's way of doing it. So we'll see where that goes. But really, it's not going to help in this situation because we need the waterway open. So all this other stuff is for nothing. So let's take a look at this news clip here. But we reimposed our blockade of Iranian ports, which didn't prove to be useful. And by the way, we were the ones who released the blockade first before Iran opened up the Strait of Hormuz. So now we reimposed that. Yes, the chat's loving that. Yeah, Trump's got a brown fetish. I don't know what's going on with that.
Third consecutive night of attacks. President Trump's trying to characterize this latest round, if you will, as a military skirmish. Senators, though, Admiral, are now debating if this has reached forever war status. Can you give me your sense of where are we?
We are closer to forever war than we are to a ceasefire, and I take no joy in saying that. I have felt
Hey, don't shoot the messenger.
For a long time, ultimately the two parties here would get to a negotiated conclusion, but certainly the ceasefire is frayed, if not completely off the charts. And Kate, you pointed out the most important thing the administration is doing is this 1,000-mile blockade of the Iranian coast. That's about California, Oregon kind of length. A lot of ports, very expensive to do that. But if anything is going to get the attention of the Iranians, it'll be closing down those red ports that you're showing right there. But final thought here, that takes time. You can't just...
That takes time, and also the more we threaten these ports and the more we say we're going to close them down and we successfully target them with military missiles or munitions, whatever it is, the more they're going to start to attack our Gulf allies. And that's what's happening in Kuwait. And by the way, remember, and people never talk about this, at one point in the war, back in April, if it was April, if I'm not mistaken, because there's just been so many moving pieces here, Iran had struck a desalination plant in Kuwait. And that is a major, major critical piece of infrastructure for any country in the GCC or the Middle East as a whole, because that is responsible for converting that ocean water into fresh drinking water. And in the desert, you know, they're kind of void of agriculture. They don't got too much to work with. So, you know, who knows what direction Iran is going to start to scramble in if they start to feel the pressure ramping back up from the United States, especially with this blockade of their naval ports, as well as our military aggression. And so this can prove disastrous for our Middle Eastern allies in the Gulf, because they're going to get the retaliation strikes. They're going to get their infrastructure hit. They're going to get their refineries hit. And this is an emboldened Iran that is facing an existential threat, an existential crisis, really. Their existence is on the line. All bets are off. There's no red lines in this war. They've already hit a desalination plant in April. They're going to start hitting the rest across the entire GCC and any other country that poses a threat to them if they deem it necessary to protect their own sovereignty. And so what corner are we pushing them into? A very dangerous one. So I'm hoping that this is a short burst of aggression and not a long-winded one. But certainly if it's long-winded, so will this war be, as it already has been. But more importantly, a lot of these countries in the Middle East are going to suffer as a result. So really concerning. And then you got the situation with the Houthis in Saudi Arabia, something we haven't seen since 2022. Not good signs.
Open and close that gate overnight. So unfortunately, we're probably in for a period of turbulence here.
That's exactly what I was going to ask, which is when they say the blockade on Iranian ports goes into effect at 4 p.m. Eastern, What does that mean for the U.S. Navy? What do people need to understand? As you said, it's not a switch that you flip on and off.
The U.S. Navy will send a couple of destroyers up and around each of the major concentrations of port. And here you've got commanding officers. They're 36, 37, 38 years old. They've got 350 sailors on this destroyer. And their job is to interdict any major ship that attempts to come in and out of that port. It's very risky business, and it can lead to further incidents, further acts of violence going both ways. So think dozens of ships to do this. You've got to put aircraft overhead. You need hundreds of aircraft in order to provide air cover to all of them. Drones possibly coming at them from the air and on the sea. You get the picture, Kate. It's a big operation. It's complicated, and the effects are kind of slow moving, frankly.
Colonel Layton, we've heard a lot about drones being used in the Iran war, and for the first time, CENTCOM says that the U.S. used a sea drone in combat. Tell us about the significance of that.
Yeah, that's really significant, Pamela. One of the key things here is when you look at the actual explosions that are a part of this, this was a dry dock that the Iranians used, and you can see the sea drone moving forward into the dry dock area, and the dry docks are used for maintenance for ships, and here you can see the color view from the sea drone's perspective that looks like a mini submarine that was in dry dock there. And blowing that up is, of course, a very significant thing. It allows us to get in there using these sea drones without risking personnel. It allows us to get in there, without really putting in danger not only the forces that would have to take over this particular area, but also air crews potentially who could be used in an attack like this. So this is a major achievement from the Navy's perspective, and it kind of mimics what's going on in the Ukraine war. Because the Ukrainians have been able to use sea drones to great effect against the Black Sea Fleet. They've basically eliminated the Russian Black Sea Fleet, and they're now going after commercial vessels in the Black Sea. Here, what we're doing is we're going after those small boats and those submarines that even mini submersibles that the Iranians have, and that, of course, is a very significant thing.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was just overseas on the USS Abraham Lincoln, and the military officials I spoke to said they learned a lot from Russia's war on Ukraine in terms of drone warfare and how much it has changed modern warfare. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so one of the key things here, this is a Saronic. This is one of the U.S. Navy's above surface drones, and it was actually used in the rescue operation for the Apache helicopter crew that was forced to ditch their aircraft in the Persian Gulf. So it's used for search and rescue missions. They did that for the first time. It's also, of course, used as...
And weren't they saying that story of the Apache attack helicopter getting hit in the Persian Gulf wasn't true?
An attack platform, and because it is part of that, it really is an evolution from what we had before. When you look at how we started out with things, we started out with the Predator back in the late 90s, early 2000s. That became first in the intelligence community, was part of the mix that they had, but then it was used by the Air Force not only for reconnaissance purposes, but also, for example, using Hellfire missiles and Tomahawk missiles to go after the various elements that would be potentially providing danger to U.S. forces, and also as an offensive weapon that it can be used to go after those areas that would be there. And then, of course, we also had the Global Hawk. This was a high-altitude platform. The Predator was a lower altitude than this. It costs only $4 million.
That are able to impose costs on expensive weapons systems. We are able to push our defenses pretty far out and use our lower cost weapon systems. I would say that.
So right now for a barrel of oil, we're sitting at about $85, $86. So went up like $13 in 2 days.
We continue to want to evolve into even more low cost weapon systems to take down some of these drones, because the cost exchange ratio is still something that we watch really closely.
So yeah, probably our craziest aggression against Iran yet ever since the beginning of the war. And what the response will be, I'm really not too excited about it. And the reason why I'm really concerned about the response is because this was reported back in May. Take a look at this article, and I've showed this before. This was in May. U.S. intelligence shows Iran retains substantial missile capabilities. we go down here, Iran still fields about 70% of its mobile launchers across the country and has retained roughly 70% of its pre-war missile stockpile. According to the assessments, that stockpile encompasses both ballistic missiles, which can target other nations in the region, and a smaller supply of cruise missiles, which can be used against shorter range targets on land or at sea. Military intelligence agencies have also reported, based on information from multiple collection streams, including satellite imagery and other surveillance technologies, that Iran has regained access to roughly 90% of its underground missile storage. Now, remember, this was in May. I think CNN, The Washington Post, and New York Times blew the lid on this. And just for a reference, if you guys aren't good with geography, look at this map. If Iran, and by the way, Iran themselves are saying they have 120% of their missile stockpile, so they're not depleted whatsoever, but that's Iran, so you got to take that. Take a look here. Obviously, you have Iran. They have ballistic missiles or hypersonic missiles, whatever, the Fateh 1, the Fateh 2 systems that can reach Israel in 7 minutes, anywhere from like 7 to 11 minutes, which is already really problematic. And then they also have ballistic missiles, or just missiles in general, that don't even need to be hypersonic, that can reach all of these Gulf countries in the matter of, what, 10 minutes, 11 minutes, and it's not even their most expensive infrastructure, expensive munitions. So, you know, really concerning stuff. Really, really concerning stuff when you think about it. But we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes. The U.S. has been aggressive. They've been destroying a lot of their ports, destroying a lot of these launch sites on the coastline, hitting them hard. So we've kind of seen the situation from the get-go. Same thing every single time. But hopefully something changes over the course of this war. Let's see. So let me go ahead and pop this on here. We'll go over Khanna being kicked out of the West Bank, which was, I don't know why people are even surprised. But let's take a look right here. So, let's see if I can get a good video. So you had this one here.
Being in the West Bank and in Israel is the first time that I have really been acutely aware of being brown. I feel like people have seen me first as brown, second as an American congressman.
I mean, bro is brown though. Like, not sure why he said that.
And third as an American citizen. I saw the arrogance in the eyes of those settlers, 21 and 22-year-olds with guns, laughing that they had detained us. The arrogance of those young IDF soldiers that my tax dollars are funding, having no respect for the fact that they were detaining Americans, no respect that they're...
And by the way, guys, if you are unfamiliar with Khanna, he's a congressman out of California, I believe their 17th congressional district, and you know, he's become a lot more anti-Israel recently.
There was an American congressperson in that bus and laughing when our translator told them that there are Americans there and the American embassy is concerned. It is the arrogance of power, of a power that has had no accountability, total impunity, and has created a toxic culture of oppression. I've been to Israel before. We've met with Israeli officials. We've gone to Ramallah, met with the President Abbas. But I've never really gotten to meet Palestinians and seen the occupation from the eyes of Palestinians. And it was important to me to have an uncurated, extensive look at the human toll of occupation.
And look, what's his motive in doing this? He's a Democrat. And what have we seen from the Democratic Party in the last few months? A lot of anti-Israel rhetoric. I know we have the DSA, we have the Mamdanis, we have all the people he endorsed that won their elections in their respective areas, but even the Democrats as a whole, Joaquin Castro, a congressman from Texas, proposed a letter to the Trump administration getting them to admit and acknowledge Israel has a nuclear program. This was a month and a half ago. No mainstream news outlets had reported on it. And so, like, the Democrats are starting to move in the direction of what people want to hear and what's favorable. Massive research, massive polls show that most Americans after October 7th actually sympathize with Palestinians more than Israeli, I believe under the age of 25 per Pew Research. And so obviously the left is seeing where the wind is blowing, and the right is just stuck in history. The right is honestly, for all intents and purposes, still with the adoption of the neocon mindset, embodying everything that the guy who just passed away, Lindsey Graham, was fighting for, which is more wars, more escalation, more dominance in the Middle East, more intervention that never serves the United States. And that is a dying idea. And subsequently of that, Lindsey Graham literally just died. And everybody on the right was so sad about it. Obviously, you had Ben Shapiro talk about it. We'll react to that in a moment, and others. But it goes to show that Israel is in this kind of mode of panic. And Benjamin Netanyahu, really most importantly, is in a mode of panic because he needs to keep war going if he wants to guarantee any sort of political standing in the country after October, which the elections will be taking place for in Israel. And he's not favored within the Israeli populace. I believe a lot of Israelis actually don't like him. But let it never be mistaken with you or anybody else. Just because the Israelis don't like Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't mean they're not in support of encroaching upon borders all around them, whether that's the Sinai or even Gaza, whether that's Lebanon, whether that's the Golan Heights, and now Syria allegedly is getting the word from Trump that IDF needs to pull out of the Golan Heights, and Trump had told Bibi out of Axios, again, out of Axios, so ostensibly Donald Trump had told Bibi Netanyahu that you need to pull the IDF out of the Golan Heights, which is a province between Syria and Israel. And so, you got all of these different things existing at the same time, but the Democrats are thinking ahead. They're being progressive as in their term, as in what they're coined as progressives, and they are now starting to understand to earn votes, to earn favoritism from Americans, you're going to have to be against American interventionism in the Middle East, and you're going to have to humanize the Palestinian plight, the Palestinian struggle. Ro Khanna is doing that exactly. And there is a lot of rumor through the grapevine that he may run for president in 2028, very likely. And as I've said before, and I hope I'm wrong, by the way, I actually do hope I'm wrong, I feel like they have a really good chance to win in 2028. If there's any time where it's possible, it's in 2028. And why? Because Trump made so many mistakes. Trump has made so many mistakes. He's made it increasingly easier month after month in this whole entire administration that's been a shit show for Democrats to weaponize talking points against the GOP and the right as a whole. ICE killing people, ICE being lazy and lousy, the deportations not even being at the numbers they're supposed to be at. And so Trump never actually delivered on that. And then he started a new war in Iran. The big beautiful bill was comprised of bullshit. Thomas Massie went against the big beautiful bill, and then Trump came out on Truth Social, berated him, and said, oh, he's pro-LGBTQ, he's pro-transgender, pro-tranny, pro-mutilation of our babies. Get Thomas Massie out. Who's Thomas Massie? Thomas Massie was one of the only congressmen every single time there was a vote for legislation to go against foreign aid to Israel. And not only to Israel, to Egypt, to other countries. He's not a fan of foreign aid across the board. A lot of people don't know that about Thomas Massie. And he actually is the embodiment of prioritizing the country and not cucking ourselves out for our Middle Eastern ally, our greatest democratic ally in the Middle East, that being Israel. And as a result, Trump worked hand in hand with all of these other very large, very rich donors to get Thomas Massie unseated in Kentucky, in which he successfully did it. And Thomas Massie had occupied that congressional seat for a long time. This was about a month or 2 months ago, and we spoke about it on the stream. So AIPAC, Trump, Israel, they've all become one entity, and now it's very clear the road is wide open. The Democrats know what they have to do to win over and win back the United States in 2028, and that's just be anti-Israel. And that's what they're doing already. Even Kamala Harris yesterday was extending her condolences to Lindsey Graham passing, or on Sunday she extended her condolences, and the left chewed her up and spat her out. The left said, you sellout, nasty bitch, all of these things on X, and that's just because there's no more wiggle room. There's no more tolerance for right-wing politics on the left at all, or right-wing politicians, especially somebody as nasty and disgusting as Lindsey Graham, the man who's responsible for millions of deaths, probably, the man who is always celebrating Palestinian children being killed. Him and the Randy Fine saying the streets of Gaza will fill with blood. Ted Cruz always saying that Israel is a biblical right on the Christians to support. So it's like this is the enemy. that this is the adversary of the Democrats. Obviously, they're going to hit the ground running in 2027 and 2028 once they start campaigning. So,
occupation. I'm certainly probably the first American politician who's been detained by the IDF and Israeli settlers. I mean, we were at a village that Israeli settlers had destroyed. They had destroyed the school. They had destroyed that village, and we were.
And the fact that he's putting light on this as an American politician is huge. This is something that an American politician would never do before. You know, back in, I think, 2015 and 2014, Obama was condemning the Israeli settlements and saying, hey, they're illegal according to international law. And Benjamin Netanyahu hated him for it. And that's all he did. He condemned something that Israel was doing illegally according to international law and Israeli law, which is occupying Palestinians in their rightfully given land. So those borders were drawn out from the 90s, 67, and Israel has been encroaching upon all of them, getting rid of these villages, killing their livestock, beating Palestinians. And Obama just said, hey, yeah, like, I don't like that. And Netanyahu hated him for it. And now, fast forward almost a decade later, you got Khanna talking about the war crimes, or not the war crimes, but the crimes and the brutal military occupation against the Palestinians in the West Bank. And he's there. He's there. And he got detained for it. So, and now all of these right-wing outlets are saying he's lying, he's making it up. They want to cover for this. This is a desperate cover from the right. In October, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump were being asked by a lot of reporters, because violence is ramping up in the West Bank, hey, is Israel going to annex the West Bank? It seems like that's where the wind is blowing. That seems like that's where we're headed. And they said, no, they're never going to do that. That's going to continue to be our mission. You know, J.D. Vance answered that question famously on the tarmac outside of Air Force Two. And lo and behold, now Khanna's there exposing the war crimes, and things have only gotten worse, and we're in July. So again, it's just like everywhere you look, they're doing all the things that are favorable. And, you know, I wasn't surprised, you know, and think about it. An American politician is being quote unquote abused and or detained. Imagine a Palestinian.
Just looking at it, and these hoodlums come in with machine guns, an M4, an American-made machine gun, and they detain us. They block off the road. And then they call the IDF, and the IDF is on their side, not on the side of the Americans.
Absolutely true, and I have video evidence to show you this. Not with Khanna's situation, but with others. All right, so let's see.
Political donors.
And just to kind of, well, it's fresh, right? To show you guys this before we get sidetracked, because I have a bad habit of doing that. This is normal.
What you are seeing are not airstrikes, not acts of war.
So let me go ahead and pull this up for you guys. Let's see here.
The dystopian.
One moment, please. And guys, like the video if you haven't already. Appreciate all the support. Got about 800 of you in here.
Congressman Khanna.
And we can review this quick video from CNN really quick, and we'll get back.
Visited Turmus Aya in the occupied West Bank, a village with thousands of Palestinian Americans who have come under repeated attacks by Jewish settlers. Khanna says he became a target as well, detained by settlers and the Israeli military for more than an hour, according to Reuters.
I'm certainly probably the first American politician who's been detained by the IDF and Israeli settlers. I mean, we were at a village that Israeli settlers had destroyed. They had destroyed the school. They had destroyed that village, and we were just looking at it. And these hoodlums come in with machine guns, an M4, an American-made machine gun, and they detain us. They block off the road. And then they call the IDF, and the IDF is on their side, not on the side of the Americans.
And so that's when I want to show you, in terms of the IDF not even upholding
things
the law.
you didn't know about the Ocala High School tragedy. Number one,
normal.
he executed the principal of the school.
All right, TikTok, come on. Work with me here. So just take a look at this and tell me what you guys think about it. Brutal, brutal occupation in the West Bank. Nothing new.
All right, so this is people.
1 second. Total boomer moment here. See if I can pull it up.
The strongest evidence is the use of what I would call a...
All right, so this is people in politics, or like the group of people in
actually-
politics that annoy me.
Play the video while I'm trying to find it for you guys so you're not bored to death.
What people in America are asking is, are you so bought and sold by the establishment and political donors that you cannot see human injustice? So if you're unwilling to speak up for Palestinian human rights, if you're unwilling to speak up against the genocide in Gaza, the apartheid in the West Bank, then you are morally compromised. And we cannot trust you to fight for Medicare for all, or to fight for workers over the billionaires, or to fight for justice and human rights in the United States. I'm strongly considering it, and I'm more resolved to consider it after this trip. We need a new moral direction in our party, a new moral vision that respects the dignity and human rights of people around the world.
One of the great champions of the American...
Rifles aimed directly at us. Israeli soldiers...
This isn't Ro Khanna, by the way. This is back in March.
...order us to the ground. Producer Abir Salman identifies us as journalists before translating the soldiers' commands.
Sit down, sit down, sit down.
So the soldiers just immediately came up and started pointing their weapons directly at us, telling everyone to sit down immediately. Obviously, we're not posing any threat here.
The commander comes straight for our camera, and within seconds... A soldier has just put photojournalist Cyril Theophilus in a chokehold, forcing him to the ground.
Don't touch him like that. Don't touch him like that. Give me my phone.
The soldier who assaulted Theophilus continues to demand he turn off his camera, before another smacks my phone. We've come to the West Bank village of Taysir, where Israeli settlers have established an outpost, considered illegal even under Israeli law. And yet here, the soldiers stand idly by. Soldiers detain us too and walk us back to our vehicle. They say they're trying to establish order between settlers and Palestinians. But as the cameras keep rolling,
So peep this. This is really what I want to show you guys. And this is why Ro Khanna got detained, but aside from or despite being a U.S. politician.
becomes clear these soldiers are here in service of the settler movement.
He says in Hebrew, we are here because this is our place. The reporter says, this is your village? He says the land is ours. So all the West Bank is yours, he asks him. Soldier says, of course it is. And not just for the soldiers, but for the Jews as well. And this is the result of that. Beating old Palestinian people like this.
In Taysir, settlers took the land at the expense of 75-year-old Abdullah Daraghme. His breathing is labored, his face bloodied, bruised, and swollen, bones broken.
Very, very normal occurrences in the West Bank.
Like,
and there's videos like this for days.
Sexual assault to the types of violence Palestinians say they face from Israeli settlers here in the occupied West Bank. This is the tent where a Palestinian man named Qusay says Israeli settlers stormed in, seized him before using these zip ties to bind him by his hands and legs. He then says they cut off his underwear before tying his genitals with one of these zip ties and then parading him around his village in front of his family.
They pulled me inside my tent and started beating me. They beat me. They tied up my legs, grabbed my belt, cut it as you can see here. And the boxers I was wearing, they cut them as well and tied my genitals while I was bound and continued to beat me. And they dragged me from here, from his shoulder, and then poured water over me and dirt.
Going through your mind when that was happening?
I thought they were going to kill me, he says. Beat me to death.
Qusay says the settlers also stole hundreds of his sheep that used to be in this pen right here. Israeli authorities are investigating this incident, but we've seen that these investigations too often don't lead to any arrests, and settler impunity continues.
Settler impunity indeed. So, yeah, Ro Khanna got a little bit of a black pill, if you will, and him going there exposes this issue. And that's why all of these news outlets like Fox News and others are trying to deny that he got detained. But is it really that hard to believe that an American politician who's brown like Ro Khanna got detained when they tie up Palestinian people's genitals and parade them around the village, embarrassing them and nearly killing them, beating them to death, as well as nearly beating that 75-year-old man to death where his breathing was so labored he could barely even stand up? So if they're doing that to settlers, or sorry, if they're doing that to Palestinians as settlers, people who belong there under international law per several different agreements throughout the 19th century, and the 20th century, well then what makes you think that they won't just detain Ro Khanna? You know, so all of these people saying, oh, it didn't happen, the evidence is everywhere. And I can get into it, but it's just so silly to even try and disprove. There's no doubt or speculation that that didn't happen. You know, so any doubt or speculation is just a very terrible try and very terrible move to, you know, shift the goalposts and direct attention elsewhere. But what's happening in the West Bank is very clear, and it's attempted annexation, and the Trump administration is doing nothing to stop it. And you may say, oh, I don't really care about what's going on in the West Bank, whatever it is. The problem is, if the West Bank is annexed, then there's going to be war in Israel forever until they actually remove the Palestinians for the better part of the next 20 years. There's going to be ongoing war and ongoing tension. You think other groups in the Middle East, all these military factions won't mobilize once Israel takes over the West Bank, once Israel tries and destroys the third or create the third temple and destroying Masjid Al-Aqsa, which is the third holiest site in Islam? So if you want these tensions to cease in the Middle East, if you want peace in the Middle East, if you want the United States to be able to share relations in the Middle East and practice diplomacy, the West Bank is a question that does need to be answered at some point. It does. And I hate to say it, obviously I'm somebody who's right-wing. The left wing seem to be the only people who actually understand this issue and seem to want to address it. Now, of course, what Democrats campaign on, which is this whole pro-Palestinian, fighting for the Palestinian plight, oh, it was a genocide, all of this rhetoric that they're campaigning on, is it actually going to be transferred, or is it actually going to be something that we see in terms of policy and legislation changes after they win in 2028? Who knows? Trump said in 2016 that we're going to make America the best country in the world, that we're going to build a border wall, that we're going to ensure there's no more foreign intervention, and then he got us into a war with Iran. And so could the Democrats be doing this whole show where they're going to the West Bank and getting detained, and then they're proposing this legislation to the Trump administration to get Israel to acknowledge their nukes, and then they win and do nothing, and they sell themselves to Israel as well? Very plausible. But what they're actually doing in terms of campaigning and exposing the right things, do benefit the American people, because there needs to be some practice of law. There needs to be some sort of law and order in the West Bank, and so that these hostilities can cease. But until a U.S. president, until a U.S. policymaker actually says something about it and does something, it's going to continue. So, you know, and Ben-Gvir is all over it. Benjamin Netanyahu was even asked about it, and of course he denied it. We can actually see what he said about it, because I think this is on X here. And oh, Gavin Newsom was asked about it as well, and I thought that was really funny. So we can see he was asked if Israel is considered apartheid state, and like I said, this just opens up more room for the extreme left, the Antifas, the DSAs, to overrun these typical mainstream Democrats, because they won't admit certain things like this.
There's been some headlines. I just want to clear this up. Yes or no, do you consider Israel an apartheid state?
I said that was directional as it relates to what Freeman was arguing about the annexation of the West Bank. So no, but in the context of his pursuit in the hard and the far right, I align with that concern and that thinking that was expressed very pointedly by Tom Freeman.
Yeah. So you think they're potentially on the path to becoming an apartheid state if they continue?
My biggest concern, my red flag, is Bibi Netanyahu, period, full stop. and his opposition to the two-state solution, how he is navigating his own domestic policy.
But it just doesn't stop with Bibi Netanyahu, and that's the problem they're always going to omit. Doesn't stop with Bibi.
Politics as it relates.
Shout out to my brother in the chat. He says, "Here, Brokey." What's up, man? You're up? Myron's up. Let's go. W Myron in the chat. Appreciate the 20. Appreciate the 20. I was just having a monologue earlier about how I'm getting destroyed at work every day. No, shout out to Big Bro. Yeah, we'll finish this video by Newsom. And then I had a video by Tim Dillon talking about the chance of death to America. I thought it was pretty funny. I only saw the first half of it. So we'll react to these two, and we'll finish up in a moment here. So let's see. Get this Tim Dillon video rolling.
When they chant death to the United States,
again with the chanting,
they have no compunction about using these weapons.
Right, all right. So that's what they're going to do when they chant. They're going to chant the chemical weapons into the country, by the way, with the chanting. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard. It's like, you hear what they chant? Right. By the way, you know what they chant at, like, soccer games? They chant all kinds of, like, is this the standard of proof now? Is that the line that can't be crossed, is chanting death to America? What do you mean we can't handle death to America? We can't handle people chanting death to America? I take more shit on that in comments. Like, this is crazy, and so does anyone who's on the internet. This is what we're doing today. They chanted death to America. I mean, imagine your kid dies in Iran, and you're telling someone about it. You go, yeah, it was a tough loss, you know, but they were chanting death to America. We had to show them you can't do that. You can't do that. So I know my kid's dead, but, you know, no more chanting. What do you think they're going to chant now? By the way, if you wanted to...
Big Bro, thank you so much for the 50. He says, I'll do a night train after you in an hour or so. Get some sleep for the Matrix tomorrow. Yeah, so guys, in an hour, shout out to Myron for the 50. In an hour, head over to his kick, and he'll probably go until like 8 a.m. So you guys got a full night of stream. You guys got a full night of streaming and content.
To eliminate their chanting, if that was the goal, what do you think killing their spiritual leader did? You think they chanted after that? I don't know. What would be a good place to chant? I don't know. A large state funeral of a spiritual leader that we whacked day one of the war?
He's so right. He's so right.
I bet there's some chants getting going. It's almost like you want the chants.
It's true. It's true, but it's the script BB runs with every single time. These people scream death to America. Yeah, because we like killed every single person in the region the last 20-something years. So yeah, makes sense for them to do that. What else would they chant? We love America? Come on. Give it up.
There's been...
Quit the LARP. Anyways, let's see what Gavin had to continue to say, but I just thought
out of our control, really, and we're not, you know, we haven't even focused much on what's happening in southern Lebanon, issues there, and intended and unintended consequences, the future of Gaza, the Board of Peace, which is about Trump and Witkoff and Jared Kushner getting their peace.
And Gavin Newsom has to straddle a very fine line here because he's not alienated from money coming from these Israeli donors. He's not. So he has to speak to the humanitarian cause. He has to speak to the quote-unquote two-state solution, the annexation of the West Bank, the genocide in Gaza. He has to entertain those talking points and make it seem like he cares. But he also has to make sure that AIPAC money is not going to get hurt. So it's very interesting to see the direction he's going in with these tough questions that are going to continue to be dished out to him moving into 2028 if he actually starts the campaign for president. But doesn't seem like he's doing a good job, and that's because you can't serve two masters. You got to pick a side.
We can discuss that and what happens to the future of the Middle East. And so, yeah, I've been very critical of him. And I say that as a guy who visited Bibi.
Right after October 7th.
Right after October 7th, because of the relationship I've had, not only with the Jewish community here, but my relationship to the people of Israel. And so I've long supported the state of Israel.
All right, let's see what yours truly, our favorite person here, had to say. And by that, I mean the worst fucking person on the internet, Ben
It's a
Shapiro.
big reminder.
So I think he has some comments about Lindsey Graham. This is a quicker clip.
Well, all the worst people are very, very excited about Lindsey Graham's death.
That's just a crazy way to start the video. All the worst people are happy about Lindsey Graham's death. Really?
Well, all the worst people are very, very excited about Lindsey Graham's death. All the worst people. But listen, whenever you talk about mortality or the passage of time, it's a big reminder that you don't have time to waste. I mean, that's just a reality. We just had a baby. That means we are super duper busy. There's no time to waste. And that's also true when it comes to your business. We all have our own time-saving hacks for everyday life. If you're a business owner, how can you save time hiring? ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter has a new feature that quickly lets you...
Okay, bro jumps into an ad. Of course, Ben Shapiro jumps into an ad. Was that an ad? There's no way he just jumped into an ad. Oh, yeah, he did. That's what the caption is. Let's see what he had to say about Lindsey Graham, though. All these bad people are super happy that Lindsey Graham died. By the way, if you do a subscription to ZipRecruiter. Anyways.
Graham died.
Okay, here's the full clip.
We can judge a man by his enemies. You know who was happy when Lindsey Graham died? Iran was very happy. Russia.
Maybe because Lindsey Graham was like trying to eradicate Iran and turn it into like a Gaza-like situation. Maybe it's because Lindsey Graham was parading at the fact that we killed the supreme leader like not even 24 hours into the conflict. Maybe that's why Iran was happy. Maybe because Lindsey Graham has been fighting and advocating for forever wars in the Middle East since 2003. Maybe because he's a descendant of the John McCain mentality. You know, maybe because the guy is still stuck in like the Bush Iraqi freedom era and it's 2026, moving on to 2027 very soon. You know, maybe that's why Iran was happy when he died.
Was very happy. You know who else was really, really happy? The echo chamber of evil. So who is that echo chamber of evil?
I guarantee you he's going to start blaming the far right. Here we go.
Well, the dirtbag left and the two online right. They hug each other. They help each other. They maximize each other. They collab on destroying America. So what you have here is a closed loop, an echo chamber, where the same dozen people cycle through each other's shows saying the same poisonous things, trying to maximize everybody's exposure. Cenk Uygur has a show with Anna Kasparian, and it's Hassan Piker's uncle. It's where Hassan got his start. Candace Owens has Tucker on. Tucker platforms Nick Fuentes and Cenk and Anna. Cenk endorses Tucker.
He is seething. He's seething.
Hassan nods along with the same lines that Nick Fuentes is posting. They're all pretending to be opponents, but they're not. They all hate the country together. Because here's the thing. If you're left to judge, who loved the country more? The senator who spent 33 years in the United States military, spanning the active duty Air Force, South Carolina Air National Guard, and the Air Force Reserve. The senator who stood for American peace through strength and stood staunchly alongside our allies like Ukraine.
What did he just say?
And the Air Force Reserve. The senator who stood for American peace through strength and stood...
American peace through strength. Okay. So supporting Ukraine and pushing Russia closer to exercising a nuclear option, that's peace through strength. Or attacking Iran, or being in support of attacking Iran and Iraq and Syria and Gaza. American peace through strength, Ben says. Or is it just that he suits all the interests of your country that you're loyal to more than America being Israel? Does anyone watch him anymore? You know, like you usually got to put on your thinking hat and go, all right, let me debunk this. But with Ben, it's like I'm just sat back, hands behind my head, feet kicked up. And it's like just the same talking points every single time. You know, Lindsey Graham was one of the, if not the most evil politicians in U.S. history, at least in the last 2 decades since 2003.
Staunchly alongside our allies like Ukraine and Israel against Russia and Iran. The senator who never made a penny off his office.
And it's crazy because there are two different factions supporting, like the Jewish support for Ukraine is not always the same as like that Jewish support for Israel. It's two separate groups. Yet like Ben Shapiro is just grouping it all together. Like all that matters is Lindsey Graham cared about Israel. Lindsey Graham was Israel first, you know?
Like pseudo-socialists, like, say, Congressman Ro Khanna, or $250 million. Or alternatively, the influencer class who thrill to terrorists and dictators and openly celebrate that senator's death all pick Senator Lindsey Graham every single time. If these are the people who celebrated Lindsey Graham's death the most, then hell, Lindsey Graham,
then they must be great people.
May be one of the best senators of all time. Again, Lindsey Graham stood for American strength. These Jack stand for American.
He stood for American destabilization, unnecessary intervention, and Israel first policies. That's what he stood for. And as a result, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people lost their lives because of his poor policy. And by the way, he was a senator, yet he was internationally involved more than like the vice president. So he was Trump's handyman to do all of his dirty work. So his two top guys, Marco Rubio and JD Vance, didn't catch all the heat in the bad press.
Weakness, surrender, and collapse. They think America is a nefarious force abroad, that America's allies are the problem, that terrorists are basically just freedom fighters against American and Western imperialism.
Well, I mean, you know, when you invade a country and you completely eradicate the right of self-determination and you try and take out a regime that the country doesn't necessarily hate as much as we paint it out to be, yeah, you're going to get resistance, right? Like if the U.S. leadership was toppled and we were invaded by Russia, lots of Americans would take their own guns that they own and build a resistance group, build a militia, build a military faction. That's not actually terrorism. So, you know, they're going to say you're an Axis of Resistance supporter. You're a Hamas supporter. No, I'm just telling you what it is. You invade a country, that is the prompted response every single time, historically. So
they're propagandists for the people who would love to see
this country was founded on that in 1776.
The America laid low. And of course, they help each other. This isn't about connecting the dots. It's the same dot. They believe basically the same things.
And by the way, when you eradicate the right of self-determination for a group of people or a nation, you actually do spark up terrorism in your own homeland because now these people are motivated to get back at you. And it's more of that kind of breeds terrorism than this like ideological, Quranic, like kind of, oh, this is from the Hadith, this is from Islam. No, it's because we are like destroying every country in the Middle East. Before Israel was incepted in 1948, before the Jewish people actually took over so much land from the Arabs, before the Arab-Israeli wars, the 6 wars from then until October 7th being 48, the United States and the Arab world got along just fine. Islam existed at that time. Islam was the same religion it is now. We didn't see terrorism. We didn't see ISIS bombings in Berlin. So is it really ideological? You can argue you have your ideological differences with Islam. That's fine. But to blame the terrorism, to blame the aggression, to blame the issues we see around the world that may have some sort of Islamic grounding to the religion is just bad faith. Because there's a lot more to it. Look no further than Lindsey Graham if you want to see the motivations.
They may disagree from time to time about issues like transing of the kids, but that's kind of the only issue. The rest of the time, they're aligned on the really important thing, which is that America sucks. And that America, if those who stand for her.
No one's saying America sucks. We're saying American policymakers suck because they're influenced by people like you who have a lot of money. Not you specifically, but people who think a lot like you, except they have far more power than you.
Her allies, all of them, are just wicked in the world.
Yeah, so good old Ben Shapiro seething about his best buddy Lindsey Graham dying. And yeah, maybe it was Russia. My brother and I spoke about that yesterday. And these were the responses from people online. Cenk Uygur said Lindsey Graham has moved on to the next step in his journey, trying to convince Houthis to attack Zeus and Poseidon. He says it will only take a couple weeks and won't require any ground troops, and there's no way Poseidon can close the Strait. And experience had good riddance. I think Nick's tweet is here. He says good riddance. So everybody was not necessarily celebrating, but saying we don't care. So yeah, there's that. Also, there's this in the news. Senate Democrats just blocked the $1.15 trillion defense bill, stalling the legislative vehicle for the U.S.-Israeli military integration push. The motion to proceed failed 50 to 46, well short of the 60 needed, with votes on strict party lines and Thune flipping to no procedurally to preserve a revote. So if you guys don't remember, we spoke about the Section 244 or the 224 as of the NDAA, where the United States and Israel would integrate their military and security and intelligence. And yeah, this was as of today. So some decent news, I guess, but we'll really see where that goes. And again, who's that by? Democrats. They're the ones who blocked the bill. Again, it's always the Democrats. They're seeming to do the right things when it comes to Israel because the right just makes it that much more easy. And then the last thing that I wanted to go over here, Trump tells Netanyahu to move forces out of Syria and Lebanon. And just for some reference here so you guys can understand what I'm talking about, because again, a lot of people just don't know where these places are on the map. So we take a look here. Of course, this is Iran. But if we move over, okay, here's Syria, and then here's Israel. And this little section right here on the cross-dotted lines, this is the Golan Heights, or the Golan Heights, okay, Jolan in Arabic. And this is mainly and militarily occupied by the IDF as of December when Trump declared it IDF territory. Trump said that Israel can have it. But now Trump is telling Netanyahu to pull out. And this is likely some sort of play of diplomacy. I really couldn't tell you what my analysis is on this. It's random. I don't think that Netanyahu is going to listen. But the IDF pretty much occupies most of this zone, which belongs to Syria technically, and most of this zone south of the Litani River, which is right here in Lebanon. And so Trump is allegedly telling Netanyahu to remove his influence from these regions or remove his influence from these lands. Let's see what it says here. President Trump told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during a phone call Thursday that Israel should start redeploying its forces out of Syria and urged him to do the same in Lebanon. And that's because he wants his peace deal in Iran. Move this over here so you guys can read alongside with me. 3 months ahead of an election that is existential for his political survival and personal freedom, Netanyahu is unlikely to take any significant steps to withdraw Israeli forces from territory it occupies in Syria or allow it to further redeployments in Lebanon beyond the one he's already agreed to. But Trump's requested add to growing pressure on the Israeli leader. The IDF currently occupies a large part of southern Lebanon and southern Syria, a presence the government says it needed to prevent another October 7th type invasion. Senior members of the Israeli government want indefinite control over those areas, and some even push for the establishment of Jewish settlements there, especially in the Golan Heights. A U.S. official said Trump told Netanyahu that the presence of the Israeli military in Syrian territory creates tensions and could lead to an escalation. And this is very true because the president of Syria, Ahmed al-Sharaa, actually has a good relationship with Trump currently, and we've released sanctions on Syria as a result, and they're doing electric deals with Qatar. So the country's trying to improve economically. They're trying to improve from an infrastructure standpoint. But if Israel starts introducing settlements and annexing land belonging to Syria, he's going to fork that process and destroy the economic prosperity, or at least the future of it, the potentiality of it in the Middle East. They don't want you here. You should redeploy, Trump told Netanyahu, according to the U.S. official, who added that the same is true about Lebanon. Okay, as if Bibi doesn't know that. The prime minister, for his part, raised the need for security zones along Israel's border, the Israeli prime minister office said in a statement. The call between Trump and Netanyahu took place a day after a meeting the president had with the Syrian counterpart, Ahmed al-Sharaa, on the sidelines of the NATO summit in Turkey. And if you guys didn't see that, Trump and the Syrian leader sat down. Trump probably called him handsome again. Let's see if I could find some of those NATO summit clips here.
No president's done as much for Israel as I have. Nobody even close. If you look at, just look at all the things with Jerusalem, all the different things that we've done. The Golan Heights, I did things. Nobody has ever done anything for Israel like me, and we made tremendous progress. And we've made a lot of progress with Iran too. Wiped out their military, but they.
And this is the Syrian leader.
Should have been done 47 years ago.
If I could, do you think that that Prime Minister Netanyahu should be reelected this election?
No president.
So, after their hangout, coincidentally, he calls Netanyahu, right, and says, hey, you got to pull out of the Golan Heights. But, yeah, there's that. So that's pretty much the bulk of it, what's kind of happened since Sunday, which is a lot. And some of the stuff I missed from the prior week. And this is him gifting him cologne. This is a minute ago. This is back in May.
It's the best fragrance. Come here, man.
Nigga, to give it him Trump cologne, bro. Former Al-Qaeda guy just kicking it with Trump, getting cologne sprayed on his neck.
It's the best fragrance.
So awkward. Like, what is happening, bro? Only Trump. Only in Trump's America is a former Al-Qaeda guy. And look, I think he's a good leader. Look, I suppose he has a rough past, whatever, but he's a good leader. Syria has actually been on its way up ever since he came into leadership. And people are saying he's persecuting the Christians. Dude, there's like full-blown raves in Syria. Like, you know, I'll go ahead and take the time and debunk this actually one moment. Let me show you guys this. People say, oh, Syria is ran by this Al-Qaeda leader. Syria is under so much scrutiny. Syria is under so much control. And, you know, meanwhile, I'm like going down my For You page on my phone. And I'm sharing this with my Syrian friends like, yo, is this really in Syria? Let's see if I can pull it up here. There's like raves, alcohol being served. So Syria is not like this militant Sunni Islamic stronghold like everybody's painting it out to be. And of course it's that way so the leader of Syria can play nice with the president. Because if he starts cracking down on this and turns it into this very strict Sharia organization or Sharia civilization, sorry, the president may actually reprimand him for it, and then they'll get sanctions put back on them. So there's that. But let's see. Yeah, I'm not finding it now, but Syria is not, it's not what people are cracking it up to be. Oh, yeah, okay. So here it is. So take a look at this. I'm going to send it from my phone onto the computer. So he's saying here, this is not Dubai, this is Syria. And so, you know, there's so many more videos like this, like nightlife in Syria and what's going on in Damascus and other places outside of Damascus. And this is just important to debunk. It's important to show this stuff because if there is a belief that Syria is under this Islamic stronghold, Sunni, Salafi, Orthodox type of control where they have the strict governance of Sharia, well, then that creates so much more plausible reason and or excuses for Israel to overthrow the Syrian regime and then annex more than the Golan Heights. So there's actually a vested interest in keeping that guy in power. Even though he plays nice, even though he allows Israel to use their airspace, even though he allows Trump to use his airspace, even though Israel struck him, I think actually a year ago till today, to this date, July 13th of 2025, they struck Damascus and gave him a warning sign because he was fighting in Sueda. Who was he fighting in the south? He was fighting another faction in the south. The Druze. The Druze is who he's fighting in the south, and the Druze have a lot of Israeli representation. A lot of them serve in the IDF. So that guy being in power actually keeps a checks and balances system existing in the Middle East. And without him, Israel will have even more control and then be able to walk over Trump even more. So, you know, there's a lot of propaganda like, oh, he persecutes Christians and oh, he persecutes it. The country's fine. And look, I know his past is not the brightest. I know his past is not the best. But the last thing you want is for Israel to overthrow the Syrian leader, in which I think is in the works. I think they want to do that eventually because they're talking about Turkey. So if they're talking about Turkey, Syria is definitely on that list. So they allowed him to take power because it was better for them than Bashar al-Assad, who was the former leader, because he allowed a lot of Iranian influence within Syria, and for the IRGC to transfer weapons over to southern Lebanon through Syria. And that is something the new leader, who is Sunni, Orthodox, fundamentalist, he doesn't allow because he's not aligned with the IRGC. So there's a vested interest in him being there from Trump's perspective as well as Israel's perspective. But of course, Israel has always flirted with the idea of overthrowing him if he steps over the boundary even a little bit, in which they attempted to kill high-ranking military officials in July of last year, which is something everybody seems to be forgetting about. So besides annexing the Golan Heights, that might be the least of the worries with Syria. Who knows if they're going to try and regime change them very soon and destabilize the country after they work so hard to get back up on their feet after the brutal Assad dictatorship and the regime and occupation of the people. But anyways, that's kind of it. That's kind of it. Very Middle Eastern heavy stream. I wanted to talk about this ICE shooting. My brother's going to hop on. He's probably going to go over it. But yeah, that's kind of, I got some chats that I'll catch up on, and then we'll get rolling. Let's see what we have here. Myron says here, Brokey. Okay, so I hope I'm not missing any because it seems like some are kind of missing. Anyways, Isaiah says, W. Ryad, as an Orthodox Christian and theology aside, you're a pretty chill guy. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, man. Mo Camera Short says, if someone says Jesus isn't Palestinian, what should I say? I mean, Jesus was Mediterranean. He was Middle Eastern. You know, it depends. I mean, somebody says Jesus isn't Palestinian. what's the point you're trying to make? Are you trying to say that Jesus was Palestinian? You know, or are you trying to make the greater point that he was Middle Eastern and like brown looking? He wasn't white? Is that what you're trying to tell somebody? I don't understand what you're trying to impose upon them. Somebody says Jesus isn't Palestinian. I mean, in some technicality, they would be correct. And in some regard, they wouldn't be correct. I mean, it depends on the point you're trying to make. But he was certainly a brown Middle Eastern man. He was golden skinned. He wasn't pale, you know. Arthur Morgan says, I'm a Muslim, appreciate what you do, unlike someone from New York City. Not. Me and Sneago are cool, man. Come on. Thank you for the super, though. I agree with Myron, you're a brokey. Yeah, I am. Thanks for the 5. You're helping me, though. I am a brokey. Let's see. And then anything else, really? No. Okay. So, yeah, guys, that's really it. Gonna have to close out real soon, or close out now, because it's midnight. Got to be up for work in the morning, get my soul drained, as I was speaking about earlier. But my brother will be live in about an hour, and he'll be live all night. So golden skin isn't brown. Okay, you get what I'm saying. What a dumb chat. Anyways, that's it. We're caught up for super chats. That's really everything that's gone on in Iran. And then all these other micro developments with Syria and the Houthis in Saudi Arabia. That's a major development, actually, but hopefully it caps off there and they don't get back into war, because that will be more of a mess for Donald Trump to try and clean up, and he'll be begging for peace at the end of it before November, which it already seems like he's kind of indirectly doing. But love all of you guys. You guys have a great night. Like the video on your way out if you haven't already. There was about 900 in you here, only 400 likes. So like the video. Appreciate the love. Appreciate the support. Follow me on Instagram. I always forget to plug this, but follow the Clips page on Insta. That's Ryad Pilled, as you can see here. Got Brent working on it, uploading the clips, as well as my guy Halimi. They're doing a good job. So follow this. 2,500 followers. Let's get to 3K. And then also on X, if you don't already, follow me. I usually give updates when I'm going live. I haven't recently. This is a funny Photoshop picture of Myron saving the girl from getting beat up. I have this pinned. I think it's hilarious. But yeah, follow me there. And until next time, we'll be back, and hopefully the situation is diffused, but let's be real, it's probably going to be worse. Have a good night. God bless. Love all of you guys. Take care.